Hi, welcome to Home Farm. Today we're reviewing the Webb Silent Shredder and the Handy Impact Shredder.
So this is our first comparison product review video. So we've never actually put two things up against each other in one video. So it was really fun to film because we were able to use both products side by side one day and then the next day and really get a feel for both of the products, both the shredders, and really see how they compared to each other. So we have about 2 acres here to manage in land, and we really learned the value last year in being able to shred our garden waste. Up until that point, we were literally just pruning in the spring, cutting things back that we needed to cut back in the winter, early spring. And then we were really just having to kind of process that. So either cut it all down, try and get it onto a large compost heap or a smaller compost heap. A, it's a really long time to process these kind of things. And B, it just takes a lot longer for those things to decompose on a compost heap. So we just really didn't have any we didn't feel like we're getting any value out of that waste. Last year was the first time we tried shredding machines, and it was a bit of a game changer for us. We were like, wow, actually this is awesome. Not only does it get through the garden waste really quickly, it makes the whole processing so much faster, and then we've actually got a product at the end of it that we can actually use. So whether that's for chipping around trees or, you know, in pathways, however you want to use that, you can actually use that material for something. So that was a real eye-opener for us. So a few years ago we built a vegetable garden, and all the pathways around the vegetable beds we decided to bark chip. And over the course of the last few years, obviously those bark chippings have really kind of compacted, and also just from wear and tear when you're walking along the pathway, stuff gets kicked out. So it tends to kind of just not only compact but also kind of disappear. We decided that this year we really needed to kind of bolster those pathways and just try and give them a bit of love and TLC. And it's been really lovely to do that using our own garden waste, free of charge, no cost to us, because I've got to say, bark chippings can add up in a hurry.
So between the shredders that we used last year and this year, we discovered that not all shredders are created equal. They're all called shredders, but the way that they actually shred is very, very different.
Yeah.
So even this year, the Handy and the Webb shred very differently, and that was very much the same case last year.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure if I'm missing something in the whole shredding department.
Yeah.
I personally think that if I was to go into a shop to buy a shredder, I would have in my mind what those shredded bits should look like. And I've got to say, I think that now after using them, maybe all of our ideas are slightly different. So maybe your idea is slightly bigger and my idea is really, really tiny. And if we were to go into a shop and just buy a shredder, that's not necessarily something you would kind of ask. Maybe you just assume it's going to shred to how you want it to be. And that is definitely not been the case. Every single shredder we've ever reviewed has been completely different.
So the shredding mechanisms are inherently the big separating point. So the Webb has got a cog blade, which is basically an enormous cog that basically just turns very slowly and chugs away and literally tears and breaks stuff apart, versus the Handy, which is more of a blade type shredder. So it's just got a blade that spins really, really quickly.
Because it kind of slices through.
It slices. So almost think of a food processor. It's almost slicing it like that.
Whereas the Webb is almost like a coffee grinder. So it's grinding like this. So if you're in the market for a shredder, the first thing you want to be doing is deciding what kind of end result you want. So do you want it to be sawdusty, or do you want it to be big chunks? What are you expecting that shredding machine to do for you? And then figure out, okay, so what inside the shredding machine, what is the actual bladle function like?
So the Webb processes the branches and they come out very chunky. We realized that you can turn the little tightening mechanism on the side.
Basically, when you turn that knob and tighten it, the grinder gets closer to a metal plate. So it basically makes the chunks smaller.
But we discovered that irrespective of how you actually manipulated that, if you had a really big branch and the actual grinder itself was pushed away too far, it would basically just churn the whole branch through. It would actually break it up. So you just had a piece of branch that was still intact, but with lots of little breaks in it,
Yeah.
which isn't particularly useful.
Well, it kind of looked like a giant snake.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for just literally getting your garden waste into a smaller pieces so that you can put that onto the compost heap, you know, so kind of these kind of pieces, then the Webb would be great for you. But if you're looking to get almost like chips, like we're not looking for sawdust, we don't want it to be just flying around like dusty, but we do want really fine kind of chips. And if you're looking for that, then the Handy is definitely the shredder for you.
So even the way that the actual mechanism works is quite different. So the Webb, the cog, when you actually put a big branch in, it takes a long time for it to process and actually feed through. The Handy absolutely shreds, rips and pulverizes that. It actually sucks it in. It's actually a lot more aggressive in the way that it actually processes the branches, which actually makes the job a lot faster on the Handy versus the Webb. In terms of motor strength, there isn't an awful lot to choose between the two. The Webb comes with a 2800 watt motor. The Handy's got a 2500 watt motor. The Handy's a lot noisier. It's 106 decibels versus 96 decibels on the Webb.
But the Webb says it's a silent shredder.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think maybe we've got different opinions of what silent is. I didn't think it was very silent. You thought it was quiet. I thought it was
It's
quiet.
quieter.
I thought it was quiet-ish. I didn't think it was particularly quiet, to be honest.
Another big difference between the two shredders is that the Webb is incredibly heavy.
Yeah, it's a lot heavier.
I think it's at about 28 kilograms. The Handy's half the weight at about 14. So the Handy is actually a lot more portable. So if you do want to actually move it around, it's actually quite easy. The Webb, you know, you got to brace yourself to pick it up because it is quite hefty.
Wow, I did not feel like it was 14 kgs. I went to lift up the Handy after I lifted the Webb, and when I lifted the Webb, I was like, oh my God, Mars, give me a hand. When I went to lift the Handy, I had that same, I was bracing for it, and I just lifted it up so easily. It just felt so light. I just went like, oh my goodness. But the one thing I will say is that don't let that put you off in the fact that lightweight means that it's going to break or fall to pieces. The impact shredder has been so durable, and I've got to say it's a bit of a beast. It's unassuming, given that kind of like the Webb kind of looks maybe a bit bulkier, a little bit heavier duty. I've got to say, I think personally, for me speaking, I think that the impact shredder from the Handy is actually the best shredder.
And probably the best shredder we've ever used.
Yeah, I think that it goes without saying that obviously when a blade is brand new and it's sharp, the first few buckets that we got out of the impact shredder from the Handy, every single thing was cut and shredded, and it was absolute perfection. Now we've used it a few times and for a couple of days, the impact shredder now is kind of shredding at maybe kind of 85 to 90% consistently, so that we're getting kind of 85 to 90% chips, and then is that kind of 10-15% of kind of longer bits like this that are kind of coming through. But still, it's still good, and I'm still really impressed with it.
Another difference is the actual collection buckets. The Handy comes with a 40-litre collection bucket. The Webb comes with a 50-litre, so slightly bigger. But we found that if you're working with a tipper cart on the side, it's actually probably a little bit easier to empty the 40-litre one, because obviously there's a little bit less waste in that.
Yeah.
But that is just another point to consider.
But I would just say the fact that both of them have buckets is a bonus, because the shredders that we've done in the past didn't even come with that. So they were literally shredding onto the ground. So that's again something, if you're in the market and you're looking for a shredder, think about that. Make sure that you decide on what you want, because if it's just shredding onto the ground, then you've got to think about, then once you move the shredder away, what are you doing with that? Last year we had to then kind of, get on our hands and knees and scoop it all up and try and move it to wherever we wanted those shredding bits to be. And I've got to say, it's arduous. It adds extra time. It's extra work. It's a hassle. I don't think it's necessary when you've got other shredders in the market that actually come with the bucket, and it makes it a lot faster and a lot more convenient to move those chippings. I don't think I actually know what the retail price is. Do you know what the retail price of them is?
Yeah, I do. I think the Webb, the recommended retail price is around the £230 to £240 mark.
Okay.
The Handy is around £180.
Oh.
So it is a little bit cheaper.
Yeah, but that's like £50 cheaper. That's quite a lot. I think that's a big difference, actually. For me, that would be a no-brainer, especially if you could even try and wait and get it on sale, because then potentially it's going to drop to something like 150, 140, something like that. And then I think that's your own business, because then this is a product that you will have for years. I really think that they're worth it. And I have to say, I'm not a huge fan of bulky equipment. We have very limited space left as to what we can actually store now with regards to bulky tools and bulky equipment. So I'm now getting to the point where I'm getting quite fussy as to like, okay, this has to be worth the real estate it's going to take up in our storage. So is it actually really going to be worth it? Is it going to work for us and actually be worth this space that it's going to take up? And I've got to say, I really think that, you know, the impact shredder is definitely worth the real estate. Another point is also just look at shredding machines when they get jammed. How do they open so that you have access to the blades to unjam them? Because typically they will at some stage get jammed. With some of the ones that we've done in the past, trying to open them has just been an absolute nightmare. There's just been tons of like little nuts and bolts, and you've got to try and stand there and fiddle with them. It's just really, really time consuming and a pain. With these ones, they were much easier to open. The handy impact shredder just has one quite big knob, and you just unscrew that, and then the whole thing just tips open. It's on a hinge. Again, some of the ones that we did last year, you actually had to lift the whole top off and put it on the floor and then go and try and deal with the blade. This one, because it actually does tip back and it's on hinges, is so much easier. So again, that's really nice design. I like the way that's been thought through.
So even though we preferred the handy shredder, it is ultimately going to come down to what kind of end product you need. Even though we've been raving about the handy, if you want the chunkier, bigger pieces, the Webb's probably the unit to go for. If you want the finer stuff like we do, it's the handy.
So I hope you found this video useful and interesting. If you did, please subscribe, ring the bell, give us a thumbs up. It really, really helps support our channel, and we are really trying to increase and boost our numbers of followers. So please, please, please. We've also started vlogging. So if you're interested in seeing more of our kind of personal life and our general lifestyle and what else we get up to in the garden, then we'll link those up above. And as we go into the gardening season, there's going to be a lot more product reviews coming your way. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good week. Take care. Bye-bye.